Welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. Today, our guest is Anna Loethman-Wilkes, who is an experienced business professional who has spent her time launching, growing, and scaling organizations. She owns and runs several businesses herself and is now helping other business owners through times of transformation. She launched House of Prose in 2023. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Anna.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be talking with you.
Yeah, we had a preliminary chat last week. I was so excited to see what you're doing. Can you please tell viewers about House of Prose?
Absolutely. House of Prose is a fairly new platform. It is a website and shop front dedicated to the independently published or self-published author. So we only stock works by people who have chosen that path for their storytelling. We are, like I said, we're a small company, but we're building and we're growing day by day here. So we got new authors coming on board every day, which is exciting.
What kind of prompted the idea, which, of course, I love the idea of only stocking self-published authors. Historically, it's always been the door has been shut to them. So why are you swinging it open the other way?
I think the time is right. That's probably one of the biggest drivers here. I've always been a book person, so I pretty much grew up in a bookshop, in a traditional bookshop, with many people in my family being book owners or working in bookshops or owning bookshops. My partner and I own a secondhand bookshop, so that's our connection. And we wanted a way to, we wanted to have an online marketplace for it. So initially we were looking at a hybrid between secondhand works and self-published, because we thought there would be a good avenue of bringing traffic, because of people will search for the secondhand books and they will come across the authors. As it happened, the self-published we had such an incredible response from, some really, really incredible authors who have done a lot of work, and we thought we put the secondhand books to the side and we put everything into the self-published space, because this is where the more stories that come across to us, we see there's so many stories that are really worth sharing with the world, and there hasn't been a very good platform to get it out there, because other substantial platforms have a lot of noise that sits around, so you're not necessarily going to find what you're looking for unless you know exactly what it is that you need there. Ours is, because of the scale of it, you're going to be able to browse the books that are there. You're going to find the stories that connects with you as a reader, which is a really important part of what we do, is connecting the readers to the stories.
Why did you decide to not do a bricks and mortar store and to be online only?
So ease as a starting point. So there's a substantial cost if you're setting up a bricks and mortar store. It is part of our future, so we will have physical stores as well, which is, that's super exciting. It's like time can't go fast enough to be up and running here. But it is the easiest way. So because of a lot of authors, they typically have the books on hand at home or print on demand.
Yep.
And because they do their own marketing activities as well. So part of the driver there was, to bring marketing and awareness and promotion together under one umbrella so that all authors that are connected to us will benefit from it. But they also do their own marketing and sales at their own end. So they're going to benefit from having their books on hand at their place. So that gives them the flexibility to, do as many sales or your events or activities that they can in their own pace, rather than committing everything to another place and not maybe necessarily making the sales.
Okay, so can you break down for us how it works?
Yeah, so I believe it's super easy. There's a 2-page form that you fill in with your details about you as a person, as in your author details, and then the book details. And it's free to list with us. So you just complete the form. We put the details on the website with a picture of the book and a blurb. The author has full control. They set the price themselves. So it's price of the book plus shipping, and that's the total price. So shipping is always included in the listed price, which is why you get a price fluctuation if you compare to other platforms where they own the shipping at the end.
Yeah.
It costs nothing to add your book to the website, and we charge a 20% commission fee on sale. So it's up to us to make the sale to generate the money. So we're not going to charge anything of anyone up until that point, and then we retain that, and that gets redirected back into marketing again.
How do you direct traffic to the website?
So because we stock all genres, so we're building it out, and each genre will need a different approach from a sales perspective. So we do niche based on genre as well, and we got a fairly substantial sales strategy that we are putting in place now for the next 6 to 12 months, which is exciting. I can't wait to get that rolling. From the most basic sense, a lot of our traffic comes from advertising, so meta advertising or Google advertising. We do a lot of networking ourselves. We are active in local readers groups and community forums. So it's a mixture on the broad scale of House of Prose. And then we also, obviously, we work with the authors who are comfortable in their space of wanting to be out there and promoting things. And obviously there's a benefit of co-promoting with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's teaming up, but with the author is maintaining their position in the driver's seat, which is great.
Absolutely. So that is the fundamental rule of our business. The author owns their product. They will always own it, and they will always have the final say on it.
Okay, let's use the example. I know Mary Garden, who has recently published My Father's Suitcase. Her book listed on your site because she does not like time. And I am currently reading her book on Speechify. Now, let's say she sells a copy of her book on your website. What happens then, and who gets what share, and who fulfills the order?
Yeah, so when a sale happens, it comes through automatically on a website, and Mary will get an email with the details of that sale. So there's no middleman, there's nothing handling here. So she will have full transparency because it is automated there. She will get notified of the customer details. She will send that book out, which gives her the ability. So some authors really enjoy the personalised experience, and they want to put a little thank you note or a little bit of extra
Signed copy, valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So the author has the ability to do that. They advise us if there's a tracking number, which we then add on to the customer profile, which the customer then gets their normal tracking details through Australia Post or the sender that they're using. And we transfer the money straight after to the author. So we retain 20% of the sale price, and we transfer the 80% within a couple of days. So there's never any delay in payment to them.
And it's 20% of the retail price, not the wholesale price.
Yeah. So whatever, if they list it for, if they want to list it for $500 and they make a sale, that's what you're going to get back.
Prerogative. Ebooks, paperbacks, audiobooks?
No, so right now it's only print books. Ebooks and audiobooks we're having conversations, which is really exciting, with a couple of other potential partners here, which will allow us to maybe offer those in the future as well. Right now, print is where it's at for us, though, because that's where you get the sort of the first magic of holding a book as well. And it is the easiest one from a commercial perspective to facilitate.
You need your authors to post promptly, don't you?
Yes, we do. So we ask them to post it out within 48 hours. And that's to make sure that there's a customer experience at the end of it, because postage will take different times depending on where it's coming from and where it's going.
That's very, very reasonable. And to keep the book stocked with you, they need to adhere to that. Yeah.
And then I guess the other option here for an author, so they don't have to have the copies on hand. If they're print on demand author, that works as well. Same process, the author gets the email, but they place the order with their printer, and the printer then sends it directly to the customer that way.
That's also a great arrangement. Yeah, I can see that being really convenient for people.
Yeah, it saves on those sort of minimum orders that can be a bit prohibitive for an audience in the first place.
How many books have you got in your store, and is it Australian authors and beyond, or?
It's Australian residents that we have in our store. So, but the plan is to expand that out, but we want to make sure that the platform works here well, we're happy with it. We know that the model is going to work, because that's probably the biggest thing we need to keep an eye on, to make sure that the fulfillment, because it is so diverse and dispersed, that will work. That will work well.
Mm-hmm. How do you take on a behemoth like Amazon?
Well, for a few different things. I think if you look at Triple J versus the other commercial radio stations, this is sort of a little bit of a book version of that. We're heroing the local at our end, which is something that we're not in competition with Amazon, I don't think, because we do things very, very differently. Yes, you can buy a book from Amazon, and yes, you can buy from us. At the end of the day, the price you're going to pay is probably going to be the same, depending on how the author sets the price, obviously, but you're not going to have the benefit as a purchasing party from either way necessarily. With Amazon, the way that we differ from them is that because of the volume of other products and books and, traditional published, self-published, and all the other items that are on there, it's a very noisy platform. But coming to us, you're not going to be offered bikes and drink bottles and stickers and skipping ropes at the same time as looking at your books. So it's a very pared back platform, but it is really heroing. We're aiming to have authors involved as much as you can, so you can learn about the person behind the book, where the authors want to share that as well. You will see the books, obviously, through our social media and, advertising. We use the content from our authors in advertising as well. So you do get you hold a much bigger slice of the pie there as an author listing with us versus listing with Amazon. Amazon is fantastic because you will get the readers. It has, if you get your ratings up there, it's going to benefit your sales. So we're not, absolutely you should go down that path and get your readers up, but you're going to potentially benefit from selling it through us. You can get the word out through them, or get the ranking or the recognition, but your sales, financially makes more sense.
Yeah. And Amazon just can never offer a signed copy of a book, which, if it's a beloved author or something, then I would love a signed copy of their book.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that
really personal.
Like they buy because of the person, typically.
And equally, a lot of authors, myself included, I sell books on my website. Yeah. How do you sit alongside that? Can your infrastructure kind of support that, or?
In terms of integration, do you mean? Or
potentially, yeah. Or do you just see that as, it's a part of the landscape?
It is part of the landscape. So what we're trying to do is, you've, as an author, you got your platform, you got your audience. What we're trying to bring to your sales there is a bigger audience, or a different audience that you haven't already got. So we're not trying to compete with you, because you're building your brand. You're not just selling a book as an author. We're selling your book and building our brand, but we want to hero you as part of that process. So it is complementary rather than competitive. Yeah,
I love that. I think that's wonderful. You're not going to have any exclusivity clauses on authors. It sounds like you're approaching this from a different point of view.
Yeah, these are not our products. Our product is the website and, I guess, the model. And to be honest, even if someone else were to start up another site that runs exactly the same tomorrow, great, because then we're going to have more exposure, and it will be the most sincere form of flattery, I think, if that were to happen.
You don't, and you'll still be the original and the best. And it's like having, you drive along and you see all the car sales places, actually brings traffic to the area. This is, to me, this is the future. This way of doing business, which is more author-centric, which is what Hembury Books is all about.
Yeah.
What about Booktopia? Where do you stand there? A lot of people, say Booktopia is, championing Aussie authors, and we love it for that.
And again, anyone championing authors are going to be a benefit to us. They are obviously, there's challenges around them at the moment. Looks like they might pull through potentially.
Yeah, which is great. A buyer. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it just comes down to, the more the industry, and they're going to be different players playing different roles here. For me, Booktopia, they hold their piece. They're great at some of the exposure. Obviously, their business side might not be the strong suit right now. I mean, they ended up in a little bit of trouble. Hopefully they will come through it, and the more sales we can generate, because at the end of the day, that is the outcome that we're all after. So whether you're Amazon or, our little secondhand bookshop in Mullaney, that, sales is really what matters here. And that's what we want to bring, contribute towards, because without the sales, there's no market.
And you have deep expertise in sales and, commercial acumen. Can you tell people about your own professional background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in commercial entities from every angle for the past 20 years in sort of more senior executive roles. So whether it's been starting up businesses, there's been retail businesses that have been part of starting, there's been service-based businesses that have been part of starting, or growing, or even contracting. So there's been every part of a business journey I've been part of, and very various industries here. What fundamentally connects all of those is that, the fundamentals of bringing awareness to your customers, the marketing that sits behind that, and then the sales being related to what problem you're solving for your audience. So that's sort of that's what we're putting in place here. So earlier when we spoke about the sales strategies and what we've got planned for the next 6 to 12 months, it's really looking at I think we've solved it for the author side, because the response has been incredible. So the next part here is obviously awareness when we're dealing with big competitors like Amazon or Booktopia, or those, they own the online space. So we've got to be a little bit smarter about how we go about our business and how we raise that awareness, because only when you're aware of where we are and who we are will you buy from us. But so that commercial aspect it always comes down to what problem are we solving for the customer, and that's why we're going is genre by genre, because a non-fiction book and a business self-help book or whatever it might be, it's going to be vastly different from a children's educational book. So we need to look at them differently and approach it differently.
I think you can generate a lot of love for this model. You could have, I'm interested from a business perspective, you could have gone for everyone traditional, and it may have been tempting because you are foregoing, the sales of Colleen Hoover and the like. Why did you choose to stick with self-published books only from a commercial point of view?
From a commercial point of view, self-published owns the world. So it makes complete sense. If you're a data and statistics person, that's where you want to be. That's the Amazon of the book world. I guess the projected growth if we compare traditionally published to self-published, traditional published is expected to grow by 1% each year going forward for the next 5 years. Self-published 17%.
And this is sales, not the number of books.
This is not number of books produced. This is sales. And it is also, with self-published, you have a larger grey area or a dark number that is actually not reported, because you as an author, if you take your books to the market, that's not going to get recorded anyway. So there's estimates behind them, but there's some much greyer extra on top of that's going to happen.
Where did you get those figures from, the 17% and 1%?
So they're various sources here. When I was looking at the various, stats. So there's through Google, they have a data center that you can access some of the information. Some of it are from the bigger reporting, from
Ibis World,
your big fours, kind of your Ernst & Young, your KPMGs, those ones. So it's merging the various reports that are available to the public. And it's like the amount of books sold that are, I don't have the traditionally published book number, but one of the figures that I came across was 300 million books sold globally each year that are self-published. So 300 million, that's a substantial amount of books.
Yeah.
Reaching an audience.
It is, and it is a number that is growing. I see one in decline. Of course, I have my preferences, but I see one in decline and one growing. So they may not, even if they're not, if self-publishing hasn't overtaken, to me, there's no doubt that it will overtake traditional publishing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I see in the inquiries that I'm getting from really well-established authors who are getting their rights back for their books because the publisher has sold less than 100 copies a year and they're just not happy. They're just disenchanted, or they want to do something that's a bit bolder, a bit riskier, a bit more creative, and their publisher just is not interested. And it's getting that business model, to me, is just so hard when, 20% of your titles are carrying 80% of the rest. That to me there's a fundamental issue there, because therefore you're not investing the energy, the time, the money into making those 80% of books a success. So it's self-defeating, and the author's hands are tied. So how many books have you got listed on House of Prose at the moment?
So we're fairly small still. We've got about 65 books at the moment, and we do have a bit of a backlog on bringing some up. So we've probably got another 20 or so coming on over the weekend.
I'm gonna be receiving
constantly growing, which is fantastic.
What will you do in the case, as I mentioned, an increasing number of authors, their first book is traditionally published, but their second, third, and fourth is self-published? Will you have to be quite firm in terms of, because the way that you fulfill the orders would be sort of impossible, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. Like, we need fulfillment service. So, some authors opt to have the publisher fulfill it for them. So because we're building out, the platform itself is really the umbrella of what we're trying to do here. So underneath that is we want to connect all the, the industry partners that wants to work with us. So like yourself, we're trying to create this network here where we can collectively contribute with the parts that we all each do. Because it's not, there's plenty of room for everyone here. We're not trying to do everything ourselves. So the best thing that we can do is find the partners that are the best at what they can do here.
I love that
as well. Some of them are opting to have the publisher deals with us directly, and they receive the order confirmation and they send it out. There's all the various kinds of how it all works.
Okay, so it's not like a super strict model, and there's
no. And ideally, as we grow, and once we get to the point of having physical storefronts as well, that fulfillment would, I guess, come through us in the first instance, because if we hold the stock, it shouldn't sit stale there. So we might as well turn through it as much as we can, because that's going to benefit everyone. It's less time for everyone as well. And, we just get more efficient at what we do, which means that we can then hold bigger storage of books as well. And we have easier, pathways for distribution. So there's all these conversations happening at the moment of how we can facilitate this to make it easier for everyone.
How incredible. Now, you have spent years in a bookstore. First of all, which bookstore was it? Oh, there was a couple, I think. And is the bookstore model, okay, yesterday I got an email from lovely James at Better Read Than Dead. He contacts me every 90 days, invariably says, we have 2 copies of your book left. They haven't sold. I will extend the 90 days. If he wasn't so nice, I'd have to go and pick them up. But all these emails, I just think this is not efficient. This is the way he so kindly deals with me as a self-published author. I provide the books on consignment, but it would not be worth my while to repeat this for bookstores. The bookstore model, what is your assessment of it?
I think there's room for change in that model. It is because of the cost of running a storefront. There's consideration that you have to take into place there, because every space is worth money and it has to generate as a collective enough to keep the doors open and staff paid and lights on. So I think you have to look at how you can do that the most efficient way, and also how you can meet the authors on that journey, because not everyone, for some authors, it really is about the exposure. So not everyone is after the sales, but they want to get their book out there because they have a message to share. As a commercial entity, if you own a bookstore, you want to make the sale because you need to bring in the money to deal with that. But I think you can do them in different ways to satisfy all. Some books, when you see them, they're going to be easy to sell, and it's just that comes with experience of knowing that physical location and the buyers that are in that space. Some people, some areas is going to be all romance, and the next is going to be all gardening because it's countryside. So you need to know your audience there and what you can do, and therefore you can mold that a little bit easier. And the other option is you can have it as you can store many copies, or you can store a few copies. So you don't have to be so bound. And I think that's the best thing that the secondhand part of book merchandising has taught me, is that books are probably the greatest asset that you can as a retailer invest in, because there's no old stock in that space.
Yes.
It's, it doesn't go off. So there's no.
And yet books are pulped. So many books are pulped. So bad for the environment as well.
Yeah. Which is that's a really interesting part of the industry, because there's a lot of single individual businesses that are starting to emerge now, where they building out this network where they collect the books that are being pulped and redistribute in the community. So there's a business model within the business model within the business model. We're talking, it's almost like a tree with its roots here.
And there's rescuers.
Yeah, book rescuers. And then they obviously have an ability to on-sell those at a different price to secondhand retailers or op shops, or wherever it might go. And therefore,
off the top of your head, do you know the name of any of those businesses? So I can.
I'll have to look it up. I can't remember but they're trading as individuals. So, but
wow.
They're really great. And that you have individuals that work with tip shops as an example. There's a lot of books that are coming through all these various avenues, and the network is vast.
The waste
just goes to show that there's customers everywhere, and there's people, there's a genuine interest in the market because it is sustained in recirculating these books. So whilst you get it from the big publishing houses and it's pushed out in the thousands and not sold, and then you need to move that stock, and if you don't have an efficient way of doing it, it's efficient from their end, but it may not have the ability to be picked up. So therefore it does go into the pulping side. But here's all these other individuals that are making a living off the alternative here, and keeps it in circulation. So from a environmental and sustainability and respect for the product, there's some great networks out there.
I mean, this is, I've spoken to authors who have, really wanted their publisher to allow them at least to be able to buy their book rather than pulping it.
Yeah.
They've sort of had to beg for that. And not every time is that agreed upon, because again, it's more time to organise that and to make the payment and everything. But it's just, my book was pulped in New Zealand. I did a publicity campaign during COVID when books were an essential item. Yeah. And I never stood a chance of really moving much stock. And it was a very sad feeling to think that mass quantities of a book that I'd worked really hard on, that was a part of myself and, my life story, was waste. It was literally garbage, and that did hurt as a creative person. Yeah. And it, as an author, how could you not be upset if you know your books are pulped? And not all authors are privy to what's happening, but the printing of the books, the shipping of the books, the returning of the books and the pulping of the books has got to stop. It's just so wasteful and unnecessary. It is unnecessary in a world we live in where you can print on demand. So, yeah.
And I think that comes from, having worked in many larger sort of corporations, it comes down to, this is the way we do it. And there's no, change in big groups like that. It takes a long time. So even if it's, this is really reasonable and good idea, and it doesn't take too much to facilitate the change that's required within an organization to facilitate it, is, not necessarily where the appetite is, because they're dealing with other items of change that is of far greater importance for them as an organization. But
yeah,
there are some really amazing ways of changing that side of it, where it actually reaches an audience that it wouldn't have reached any other way.
Books
and
are
that's
precious, and
Yeah.
books are expensive, and a lot of people can't afford them. I can't afford to go and buy 5 paperbacks a week. That'd be crazy. Do you know what I love and what you should get and what I dream of getting is like a Hembury Books, like a flagship sort of store where, we could have like book launches and
yes
showcase our authors, and they could come in for signings with a book espresso machine. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what's a book espresso machine?
You push the button and you choose your book and it prints it in 2 minutes or 5 minutes.
Oh,
They exist. They exist in America. I think one company sort of wanted to roll them out everywhere, and bookstores didn't like them. And it never really got ahead, but you can Google the book espresso machine. But I'm like, one machine, not to kind of generate all my income, but as an amazing thing to
God, yeah.
Because imagine an author launching their book, printing out the copies and then catching it and signing it and then hot off the press.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that idea.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. So, yes. Is there anything like House of Prose overseas? Because there's nothing like it in Australia, I'm sure, isn't it?
No, not that I've been able to find. So there are a few versions, but nothing, again, that sort of stood out, or nothing that we looked upon and go, this is the model that we want to carry on here. So we haven't actually found anything that's sort of replicable in that way. Often, similar to here, you get it often attached to a publishing house and they have their own web store or something like that. So it is for self-published. There's a couple of players here in Australia that I think are coming out now. They're starting, as publishers, and they want to bring on other published works under their umbrella, which, could work, but you get a bit of an industry, I don't know, like a bit of opposition in the industry with that as well, because you're not actually independent. So there's not really, to my knowledge, anything that is similar.
Have people started calling you disruptive? People call me disruptive.
A lot of people, which is really sad, is sort of going, is this another scam? And that is like, there's a lot of that conversation happening that, that are being picked up at the moment, which, people have been hard done by, or, ended up on the wrong side with people. And it's just not.
There's no trust. Yeah.
Yeah. There's limited.
That's
but
really.
We'll work to change that. And that has to be part of the conversation. And I think that's sort of that's the real beauty of what we can do in this space with partnerships as well, because when industry partners come together, that accountability, I wouldn't want to be associated with someone who does the wrong thing, and you wouldn't either. Yeah. So therefore, by force, it will eradicate that kind of behavior where it exists, because you can't behave that way with the industry still backing you. So I think there's some real power in what we can do collectively in this space to help.
That's interesting, because that's very similar for me, because there are not good players in this area, and it's a new area, and a lot of it is just awareness. But especially in the beginning, it was more kind of defensive marketing, like this is what we're, I guess so that's interesting that you get. I think anything new, people maybe have a bit of distrust for.
Yeah, and because understandably so, because what ends up in the media is always the bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it is, unfortunately. But I think, when you're working, again, for me, it's all in the partnerships here, because we all also work on, the reputation that we all bring, we business professionals, we experience, we know our stuff, we have the connections to make each part successful, each of us individually, and more so collectively. So I think that's sort of the reputation and the of both the businesses and the individuals behind the businesses is going to be really powerful there.
Yeah. I do think there are some vested interests in continuing certain outdated stereotypes or even mistruths. Like, you know, I've heard it said, like, if anyone ever asks you to pay for any money to publish your book, then they must be a scammer. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
the alternative, you know, like the saying in tech, right? If the product is not free, you are the product, right? You are the product when your book is the product, when the publisher buys your book in the form of an advance or a contract, you might not even get one. And so that's a business exchange. Like, they have bought your book. So, you know, I'm just saying, well, you know, you can pay me to create your book, and then, but you continue to own your book. But you know, I've heard it said many times, like, run a mile if someone asks you to pay. So I guess, you know, it's just changing those kinds of narratives and stuff. But also, there's sort of, because the business models are kind of opposed, there's no interest on some sides in defending self-publishing or anything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Because it is that hostile space as well, and that is the limitation of traditionally published, is that it is limited in resourcing. So when you have a company and you can't grow it, you know, you only have so many, you know, the resources are limited to grow your company, and therefore by default you're not going to pick up new unless you have an agent or something like that. But then you have that other, you know, the really misinformed attitude of certain, and it's just perpetuated or parroted kind of, where they it's such an injustice. It's probably the one that makes me the most frustrated, is when people claim that it is not accurate, it's not professional, you're not a real author, you're a scammer. Like, the number of people in the last week that I've heard, you know, being referred to or holding back on expressing who they are as professionals because they don't want to be perceived in that light, that just blows my mind. I can't understand how that even exists, because if I want to publish a book, I will go and find the best publisher that I can afford myself. Like that's a given. You're an expert, I'm not.
Real life example, because I think that bookstores, I've had sort of mixed treatment, and that I've had some not great treatment as an indie author. One of my clients wanted to have a book launch at Readings, and went and dropped the book in. And of course, you know, to have the book listed, Readings is a beloved bookstore, and dropped in the book in person, gave the copy. And then when the book went online, there was a big warning across the top saying, warning, this is a self-published book. It may not have been professionally edited. We will not refund this if you're not happy with the quality of it. And he sent it to me, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like, just don't stock the book. You are doing more harm than good. Also, you had the chance to check the book and accept the book. Really, that is just bad behavior. And it's sort of shooting yourself in the foot. Why on earth would you stock a product if you were wary of it? But, you know, that just left a bad taste in my mouth, because I would never recommend an indie even approach them. But to me, they're missing sales opportunities. It's it's an amazing book.
Yeah, but I think there's a very different audience that we're speaking to. That's terrible behavior, full stop. Why would you do that? From a commercial point, from a people point, from a
from a lender's point, like
at every point, it is absolutely poor. But I think we're also dealing with very different audiences here, because what we have in the self-published is the connection to the people who aren't necessarily represented, the stories that aren't actually getting chosen to be out there. There's a real stronghold on what we as readers are allowed to read and what is available to us. And it's not a shortage of stories, and it's not a shortage of books being printed and published. It's a shortage of reaching the audience or having a way to tell the world about it. And that's my ongoing argument why people should choose to read more self-published, because you will find things that you will not find them in the big bookshops. You're very conditioned in what you get to choose from, and therefore you're conditioned in terms of the ideas that you're exposed to, the solutions to the problems that are usually resolved within some of these journeys that people take you on in the self-published space, it's a whole different world of experiences.
Honestly, it takes my breath away. I'll be reading a client's book and I will just be like, you are so brave and you are so interesting. And this is what it means to be human. Like, I just love it. Give someone the freedom to write their story and they will take it, whereas there's a lot of risk when things get commercial and there's commercial deals and you don't want to get cancelled and you need to be risk averse. And I just feel so strongly that if you want, say with memoir, we're getting the same stuff. We're getting the same celebrity addiction stuff coming out. What about someone that's just such a unique individual, but also is one of us? Like you see, like Mary Garden, like I feel
like Mary.
Yeah, she is so herself, and I can see it's an expansive kind of meditation on her life. Yeah. And I know a traditional publisher would say, we would have to take that out. But I'm so glad she self-published it because it's completely Mary. Like I really feel her honesty is just, it's so great, Yeah.
And that's what really opens your perspective on things as well. You're introduced to ideas that you wouldn't have come across otherwise because someone else has made the decision for me. So doesn't even get to me. And that's
the keeping of ideas.
Yeah, and that's very hard for me to accept that would be, knowledge and experience will be purposely withheld from me, which is not in this space, which is why we want to be here.
Wow. They say too much agreement kills a chat.
It does.
Nothing to say, but I just think that's tremendous. Now, would you ever turn down an author who approaches you to list their book?
No, we wouldn't. But we do have a couple that are on hold because we haven't got the audience. So if it becomes too far of a disparity between the current stock and the readers that we've got, we choose to probably bring them in together as a group. So there may be, genres that are going to benefit more. We're not talking long term here, but that are going to benefit from having more. So if you're the only one, you don't want to be the only book listed in a drop down kind of, because that just you look lonely and you're not necessarily going to be there. And we need to have the audience. We need to have the readers for it. So that's right now that's been the only.
I love that too. Because I'm the same. Again, I am not a gatekeeper and I am not the arbiter of taste. If I thought a book was offensive or untrue or harmful, then I do have that in the contract that I have the right to. But I could publish it as a white label, but it would not have the Hembury Books because logo. But I am not a gatekeeper of ideas.
No.
Live events, are you planning some events?
Yes, we are. So that's part of, again, coming back to that, connecting the industry, connecting people. So we've got an author event coming up in October, which is really exciting. So we're bringing writers aspiring to become authors, and we got some, great lineup of industry professionals, all independent from each other, but they're all there to, present and help people along that journey. So that you're not there with your book in hand and now what? So we got, for that particular event, we got, marketing and sales, printing, publishing, we got book designers, we got legals for creatives, very important, but most people don't love that bit. And, the traditional sort of self-leadership and branding and those kind of aspects. But this is something that we want to work with partners all across Australia because we can run these events and connect people in a way that is beneficial to the author, and therefore we're connecting them with the professionals who can help them in this space, and they have a greater choice of what, they can pick and choose a little bit more, make the contacts, network with other writers, authors, and just build their opportunities that way.
Amazing. I really hope you do something in Sydney soon and I'll be there with my bells on.
Let's do it.
It would be fantastic. Okay, so finally, how can authors get in touch with you or start the process of listing their book on House of Prose?
Yeah, so it's super easy. On our website, there's a contact form, or you can email us at hello@houseofprose.com.au and we'll reply back. It's we've got one how it works document and we've got one listing form, and that's it. Off you go. You just fill it in, return it with a picture of your book, hopefully a professional picture. If you haven't got it, we know that's a challenge at times, so we do our best to bring it up to the standard that can be visible on the website.
As an author, you should have your own photo.
You should, but that isn't the case for everyone, unfortunately. You know, some of them only have the wraparound cover, so the full scale. They don't have the front cover and the back cover. Some of them don't have any at all. So they send us photographs. You know, here's my book on the kitchen table. So you get it in all sorts. We thought that would be a given. It's not a given. It should be.
Well, it's, you know, it's a tricky landscape to kind of navigate, and maybe, you know, I mean, it took me ages to work out how to get all the necessary parts, right? It's a collection of parts and platforms and things like that. So,
we do stalk other platforms. So if you're listed elsewhere and you don't have it, you know, we can, if it's on Amazon, yes, we can obviously use an image from there because it belongs to you at the end of the day. So with their permission, we can use that. So there are avenues of getting around it. It's just the individual, either, you know, they may not have their file storage sorted out, or things kept because they looked at it once and don't need it again because here's my book. Sometimes they don't have, you know, the computer literacy that's needed. So, you know, sometimes we get a photo of a handwritten form. You know, everyone is different because we get the age range also. It
can be different. I love the name House of Prose, just finally.
Yeah, thanks.
It's an elegant name. Did you come up with that?
Yeah, that was our little brainstorm. A few glasses of wine helped.
Yes, it's a good facilitator of great names and ideas, the wine.
It is. The wine is good.
I think it's a beautiful name. And I can't wait to attend a House of Prose event.
Yeah,
each time I get an author, it's going to be in their welcome pack or their, you know, go out into the world pack.
Yeah.
To contact you.
Likewise, you know, we get inquiries all the time, and I couldn't think of anyone better to facilitate, you know, that fiction space. So, you know, that referral space is definitely where we're all going to thrive.
It's the ecosystem.
Back to you.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Book coaching, editing, self-publishing, nonfiction.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm the girl. All right. Thanks so much for your time, Anna. It was another great conversation with you. I really enjoyed it.
Likewise. Thanks so much.